Requested reviews are kind of a lottery. Some of these films I have already seen and have an opinion on already, and some of them I have never seen. This one is the latter. I had heard of this movie, but it just didn't seem like something that would ever interest me, and so I skipped it. But having sat through it for the first time, I have to say, it was quite good. In fact, it was damn good. Boondock Saints is interesting because at its core, it's not much better or more interesting than any other film of its kind, with vigilante justice, gunning down mobsters, and the like. What makes this movie a cut above the rest that I've seen is in the way it's put together. Things constantly change in this film while still remaining the same, if that makes any sense at all, which it probably doesn't, so let me explain. Here's the basic plot of the film. Two brothers get into a bar fight with a few Russians who turn out to be connected to the mob. The mobsters come back for revenge, but the brothers take them out with a little bit of luck and some impossible feats that are entertaining, but make you scratch your head wondering how any of these people survived this. No charges are brought against them, and they're both let go, but the community regards them as heroes, even saints, for taking out the mobsters, and now they believe that ridding the world of evil is their calling. The rest of the film chronicles their antics as they begin targeting mobsters and other lowlives, delivering their own vigilante justice. At first, I thought this was going to be a revenge fantasy, kinda like The Crow, but I soon realized that there really isn't any revenge in this film at all. These two are simply doing what they perceive to be right. So this is more of a justice fantasy, kind of like Batman. Now, as you can plainly see, the premise for this film is very simple. But it's the mark of a good filmmaker to take a simple premise and make it compelling. That is exactly what happens here, and this brings me back to my first point. This film isn't actually any deeper than any film of its kind with this kind of premise, but the way the film is made sets it apart. Every encounter with the brothers trying to take down their targets begins after the fact. The investigator, played by Willem Dafoe, will case the crime scene and explain what he thinks happened, and then we see those events as they actually played out. Not since Memento have I seen a perspective so interesting in a film. Picture this. The last big showdown scene has just ended. The characters prepare for what comes next, and when the scene cuts, you just all of a sudden see this.
Pack your shit! Pack your shit! We gotta get out of here!
It's like, what the fuck happened? If this had been done in a linear style, this would have been any other scene. But since we aren't privy to these events until later, we're all far more interested in what's going on. That's the genius of how this film was made. Even though we're essentially seeing the same thing over and over again, it all feels different. And it's all interesting in a different way. You are constantly given a reason to ask what the hell happened and what's going on. This film never allows you to lose interest. And that's not the only way in which the filmmakers keep things fresh. The way in which these events are explained in retrospect are never done the same way twice. Sometimes it will be exposition by Dafoe followed by a flashback, but then the film gets really creative, putting Dafoe in that perspective and playing them out alongside the reality. Sometimes he even gets it wrong, mistaking, for example, one person with 6 guns with 6 people each with a gun. This is good filmmaking at its finest. It takes something that isn't that interesting and makes it very interesting. Not through adding more violence or set pieces or stunts, but through good old-fashioned creative filmmaking. The two principal characters are admittedly thin. We don't really know very much about them, but this is all about their actions anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The whole point is that these are two unlikely anti-heroes doing their thing. But Willem Dafoe's character is a different story. This guy is an asshole. Everything he says is one ego-driven fuck you to everyone around him. He could be the best cop in the universe, making the streets safer for everyone on Earth, and you'd still hate this guy.
Why don't you get me a cup of coffee?
Who the hell is it?
Cafe latte.
What the
Twist
fuck?
of lemon.
Chief, what the fuck is this?
Sweet and low.
You smug little bastard. One of the most bizarre parts of the film is that they go out of their way to flat out tell you that Dafoe's character is gay. It just comes out of nowhere. I don't even know what the point is. It was unexpected, sure, but why do we need to know this? It's not a complaint by any means, it's just an oddity. Oh, and by the way, he's even an asshole to his partners.
What are you doing?
I just wanted to cuddle.
Cuddle. What a fag.
I mean, what a dick. Then we have the funny man, who is one big walking fuck-up. The two main characters make their share of mistakes, but when this character comes into play, you're constantly thinking to yourself, God, this would all be so much easier if this moron would stop fucking up all the time. Still, he's got a good heart and adds a lot of personality to the mix. The greatest thing about him is his dialogue. He doesn't know when to shut his fucking mouth, and some of the things that come out of his mouth are just unbelievable.
Shut your fat ass, Ravy! I can't buy a pack of smokes without running into 9 guys, you fucked!
Fucking hell! Just about everything in the film is thin, but that's almost what makes it so remarkable, because it doesn't feel thin. In fact, I'd almost go so far as to say that this movie makes you forget how thin it is. At the core, it's just two guys gunning down mobsters. That's it. I mean, what do we even really know about these two? We know they're brothers, they do the things that we, the audience, find satisfying, but there isn't much character to them. What's at stake in this film? Is the world going to end if they don't kill all the mobsters? No. Are their efforts going to eliminate the mob altogether? No. On the face of it, this film is quite small, but the way the film is made and the creativity of its presentation makes that irrelevant. We don't need stakes any bigger than going from one mobster to the next when those events are presented in such an interesting way. We don't need to know anything more about the principal characters when the events surrounding them are so remarkably well presented. This movie has no ending. How could it? This is one of those premises that could either end at any time or just go on forever. The only real question to be answered in the end is whether or not these two were doing the right thing, and that's for the audience to answer for themselves. Finally, I want to make mention of one astounding detail here. Troy Duffy, the screenwriter, got his inspiration for the story when he was working as a bartender and witnessed a drug dealer taking money from a corpse. Now, I want to make this clear. Duffy was not working as a bartender and a screenwriter. He was just a bartender. This man had never penned a screenplay in his life. That's amazing to me. Watching this film for the first time and knowing precisely nothing about it, I just assumed it was written by a seasoned writer. The dialogue is so natural, so clever, it just amazes me that it was written by someone so inexperienced. There are films written by seasoned professionals that weren't nearly this good. This man is simply a natural talent. Bottom line, I loved this movie, and I am grateful to have seen it. This is one that I can see myself watching long after this request is done. If this kind of gun all the bad guys down style movie isn't to your taste, I'd still recommend this. You might just be surprised. And if this kind of film is to your taste, trust me, it's top shelf. Just one word to the wise, however, you might want to approach this film with caution if you're a cat lover. The end.